Hello, and in this episode we're going to be looking at the minimum datasets options, which is in the Customise Orgs and People section. So I'm just going to go straight to my Charitylog system. And first things first, I'm going to explain what this function actually does. So the minimum dataset actually applies to when you're either creating a record type or when you're creating a new referral for that record type. So if I look at this, for example, when I go to in the search options, go to create new client record, I'm then presented with, in effect, a blank record type. But you can see here I've got red fields. Now these are set as minimum data sets, so it won't allow me to proceed or save without adding to those fields. And it ensures some kind of minimum standards for your record types. You need to use these sparingly because you don't really want everything to be mandatory, because that will just mean staff will have to put in sort of like X's to proceed to the next screen. So you need to strike a balance between what is actually genuinely required in order for you to create a record at the first or initial stages of the contact. Okay. Second thing that it does is when you're in the search screen, you also have the ability to create a new referral for a new client, which is this option here. And most of the time this is the one that's used because it does two things at once. First things, it allows you to select the project. So when I click on this, it actually allows me to choose the project, and the second screen, it allows me to create the client before the referral. So this is what I have before. We have the red fields, the minimum fields, and then we have these fields which are set to show. So in the Customise section, so if you go into the menu items, just type in Customise, click on Customise Orgs and Peoples, you get to this screen, and then this is the one we're looking for here. So these are the record types on the left hand side. So we've got clients, we've got donors, events, things like that. And follow your mouse over to the middle, you've got the edit rules option. So the first things first, we need to set our organization-wide rules. And this means when we're setting all client records or all record types, they must have a baseline. So any kind of project, any kind of referral, we have to have a baseline for those rules. If I select the edit options on here, here we have the options. So the options are forced, warning, which will allow the user to proceed to the next screen but will give them a warning message, or show, and that means it will be left empty but it will let them proceed, or not required at all. So when I was looking at this screen here, so I've got these as mandatory, these as show, and then I could also have other screens here. So that's me switching on, I think, what is the sensible options for creating a client record for the first referral. So I have the first name, surname, address. I might want to put a reminder on address line 1, so I'd switch that to warning. And it's just a case of working your way down through the fields that are displayed on your record type. Regardless of which tab, as long as they're standard fields, you can switch them to force, shown, or warning. So again, strike a balance between what you're going to get at the first or initial stages of contact, and maybe strike a balance between forcing and putting reminders on fields, because the reminders will also apply when you're saving records as well. So if I set the warning to date of birth as well. Right the way down to the bottom, I can save rules. And then when I refresh this screen, what you'll notice is that the options change, and it will give me the yellow options, which are the reminder fields there, and anything that's to show but allowed to be left blank, and I can now enter that in and proceed to my next stage. So that's the first thing to this. Make sure all these options are checked, so when I'm saving a record, it's also enforcing that rules, and when I'm also creating a new referral and existing, it's enforcing those rules as well. If you did want to delete them, you could do so, and then you could create a new rule from scratch if you wanted to. The second thing you can do is, this is the baseline. The next one in is project rules, and this means that once we have established a baseline, if we were to refer to any of the following projects, we could increase the rules. You can't reduce the rules, you can only add to them. So if I create a rule for the advocacy project, for example, just by selecting create rule, it knows that I have minimum data sets here, so there's no point me selecting surname and first name as a minimum data set because these are already set on my baseline for everything. The project rule allows you to extend this and make additional fields mandatory now. So I'm going to select the usual support worker field and maybe the email address, because this project needs to have someone's email address and it needs to know who the support worker is, and you also need to specify the service user group, for example. So if I was to select those and press save, here it doesn't apply because I'm just creating a standard record, but if I was to select the advocacy project on the initial stages, then I would be forced to fill those in. So if I select again, new referral for a new client, and select the advocacy project, this time my rules would be different. You can see the email address now applies and the usual support worker now applies because I've selected that project, but it's still applying the baseline. Okay? So again, strike a balance between what is needed on the baseline and what that individual project needs. The third option is group rules. It does something very similar to project rules, but you can apply a rule to a group of staff, not necessarily the project itself. So it could be the case that you have volunteers maybe who you would allow to create a referral or a project, and you could create some rules for them. Not commonly used as much as the project rules and the organization rules, but it does allow you to have a group of staff that maybe handle the second or third part of the referral, and you would then ramp up the rules even further, but they still apply to the baseline and they just add more rules as appropriate. Okay, thank you very much.